It's Wednesday, and you're listening to Warlock Wednesday on Ehnotherpodcast.com.
Hello and welcome to another Warlock Hour. Warlock Wednesdays here with Rayzor, and I've got a lot of things that I want to get to today. I'm going to try and get to as much as possible. I found out a few things just recently, so there'll be some great information coming to you from Monday night as I record this podcast. You're listening on Wednesday, as always. So as always, we're going to start off everything this week with the comic book releases. And from DC Comics this week, 5 titles for your reading pleasure: Batman Incorporated number 10, Flash number 19, Katana number 3, Superman number 19, and Teen Titans number 19. And from the juggernaut that is Marvel, A plus X, or Avengers plus X-Men number 7, Deadpool number 8, Deadpool Killustrated number 4 of the 4-part miniseries, Uncanny Avengers number 7, and Young Avengers number 4. From your independents this week, Dynamite Entertainment, Bionic Woman number 9. From IDW Publishing, G.I. Joe number 3, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 21, True Blood number 12, and last but certainly not least, from Image Comics, the much anticipated Jupiter's Legacy number 1. So those are your comic book releases for this week. My selections will include all 5 of the Marvel titles that I listed, and possibly the Jupiter's Legacy. Other than that, I will leave the choices up to you. Moving on to movie news. For this past week, we had a new number 1, of course. It seems right now we're going to probably have a new number 1 almost every week, and it'll be probably a new movie. This week was no exception. Last week's number 1 was 42, which was new that week. This week's new movie is Oblivion. Oblivion was Tom Cruise's biggest box office hit in years, really. He hasn't had an opening weekend like this since 2005's War of the Worlds. And the opening weekend for Oblivion was $37 million. Now, I seen this movie this past weekend, and I was unimpressed. It wasn't bad. It wasn't a horrible movie. It wasn't a great movie. It was just meh. It was kind of a okay movie. What maybe affected my judgment is I went and seen 2 movies back to back. I went and seen Olympus Has Fallen, and then I went and seen Oblivion right after it. Olympus Has Fallen was so good that the factors that Oblivion had that maybe might have been good were lost because I was so pumped from watching Olympus Has Fallen. That being said, it's not a horrible movie. There's some good elements to the movie. However, I was unimpressed. It was not a great movie in my opinion, and but again, not a terrible movie. Just entertaining, I guess is what you could call it. And I mean, that's what movies are there for, to entertain us, and so it accomplished its job. So 37 million, number 1. That's enough for the number 1 spot. Let's move on to number 2, and number 2 was 42, raking in another $17.7 million, which means it has now made its budget. It is now a profitable film at $53 million for 2-week total. Sitting in the number 3 spot, the very busy at my personal theater, The Croods, which is still topping out maxing out the theaters, especially on the Saturday and Sunday afternoon showings. The kids are coming out in droves. This movie has made $154 million in 5 weeks. It is also considered a profit. It cost $135 million to make, so it's not a huge profit, but it is definitely a profitable movie. But as I said, at my personal theater, this movie is probably the number 1 movie. If we were to just take my theater's numbers, guaranteed The Croods would be number 1, and then it might be Oblivion. But Croods is number 3 overall in North America this week. Sitting in the number 4 spot, Scary Movie 5, bringing in another $6.1 million. Number 5, G.I. Joe Retaliation, $5.7 million. Number 6, jumping up a bunch of spots as it opened up into 1,028 more theaters. The Place Beyond the Pines jumped up from 10th to 6th with $4.9 million. Olympus Has Fallen holds steady at 7 with $4.4 million. Evil Dead drops from 5th to 8th with $4.1 million. And just on its personal for that one, it's way superseded its expectations. I mean, a $17 million budget, it's already raked in $48.5 million. This movie is definitely a huge success, not only for the future of the franchise, but for those of us who've been fans from not necessarily the beginning, because the original movie never did really well in theaters. It wasn't until it hit DVD that it became a cult classic. And for us fans who've been following along, and guaranteed for Sam Raimi, for Bruce Campbell, for Rob Tappert, and all the guys that worked on the original films, this is huge, and that is amazing. So moving on to rounding out the top 10, number 9, Jurassic Park 3D, dropping from 6 to 9 with another $4 million. And rounding out the top 10, finally, Oz the Great and Powerful, dropping 2 spots to hold on to the number 10 spot. Its 7-week total is $223.7 million. Again, another profitable film, as the budget was $215. So those are your top 10 movies from this past weekend. What's coming out Friday? Well, we got a couple for you. The Big Wedding, which is a huge ensemble cast with the likes of, and I'm not looking at it, just naming off the top of my head, I know it's got Robert De Niro, it's got, I can't even think of anybody else. It's got Topher Grace, Amanda Seyfried. It's a huge ensemble cast. It's probably a romantic comedy. It's definitely comedy. Maybe there's a bit of romantic comedy. I mean, it's called The Big Wedding, so there should be romantic comedy. The other one that I'm personally looking forward to this week, because I'm not much interested into that movie, but if I do see it, I'm not going to complain. I mean, I do get to see movies for free working at a movie theater. But the one that I'm really looking forward to seeing is Pain and Gain, starring Dwayne Johnson and Marky Mark. This movie I've been anticipating for a while. I will pretty much see any Dwayne Johnson film, even though I have missed some in the past. I try and make an effort to see his films. I love his acting. Some people don't like him. I don't care what you think. This is my show and my opinion, and my opinion is I like Dwayne Johnson. Dwayne Johnson's probably your equivalent action star to in the height of the 80s, when you had Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, and Bruce Willis. This is the same type of star that Dwayne Johnson is. He's the action star for today. Now, that being said, he is 40 years old. He's over 40 years old. So at the same time, I had a conversation this week. Who are the action stars of today? You don't see many full-on action stars. The only one that comes to mind that's under 30 years old at this time, that's watchable and enjoyable, is Chris Hemsworth. He's the only one that comes to mind who's done some action movies that's succeeded very well, and he's not a horrible actor. There's been other under 30 quote-unquote action actors, but that doesn't necessarily mean they were good. So I don't know if there's anybody out there that's today that would be considered a true action star other than Chris Hemsworth, in my opinion. So those are the 2 new releases coming out this Friday. And as I said, I'm looking forward to seeing Pain and Gain, and hopefully by the time I do next week's broadcast, I'll have some information on that, because I'll hopefully have gotten a chance to see it. So, moving on with movie news, as we always do. Casting call this week on April 19th, which was last Friday, the Friday past. A casting call went out through the Universal Studios for Guardians of the Galaxy, and it kind of reveals some of the information of what's going on possibly in this movie. So, spoilers, if you don't want to hear, you may want to skip ahead a few seconds as I go through this quickly. Some of the casting they're looking for is the Core. It's a group they're calling the Core, and what this is they're looking for seasoned male and females who have military experience. they want beings from an alien planet. So they want, in this, they're asking for males and females who are amputees. Doubling for the superhero. They're looking for a male to double one of the main actors. So they don't specify which one. They don't go into too much details. Just we're looking for males to double one of the main actors. So they don't reveal which main actor they're looking for a double for. So there's probably more on the Universal site. Not a sponsor, by the way. Albino males and females. They're looking for male and females who are albinos. So, again, very eclectic group here. Tall aliens. So, looking for tall males to play aliens. So, this is specifically males. They're looking for tall. They don't specify a height, but I'm guessing they're talking over 6.5 feet. That's usually what they refer to as a tall male when they want tall aliens. They want people who are at least 6.5 feet. Probably taller. 7 feet would probably be even better. Dark Monks is one of the titles. They're looking for males and females to pretend to be monks. So I'm not sure if there's any specifics to that. They just said males and females pretend to be monks. Mutant soldiers. In this, they're asking for males with stunt or S.P.A.C. experience to play mutant soldiers. Basically, these are going to be your stunt actors and actors who have experience doing this kind of acting where they're not going to have really any lines. They're just going to probably be killed off or thrown off buildings or have something done to them. So they need actors who aren't official actors but have the stunt experience. They're looking for bald males and females for aliens in the film that are going to be bald. The big man. They're looking for a very muscular male to double one of the main actors. Now, in this one, they're very specific. Doubling the main actor, very muscular. Obviously, that's going to be the the stand-in for Dave Bautista, who's playing Drax the Destroyer. So that's what they're looking for there. They're also looking for male and female identical twins. So that's just to give you an indication of some of the casting that they're looking for Guardians of the Galaxy. Sticking with Guardians of the Galaxy, a casting note to pass on to you. Michael Rooker of Walking Dead fame, or some of us even know him from many of his other works. I go back as far as remembering him playing in Mallrats. So that's a shout out to my inspiration in podcasting, Kevin Smith. Michael Rooker has been cast to play a character that was not included in the concept art, but you have to remember it is concept art, and his name is Yondu. He is actually the man who formed the Guardians of the Galaxy. He was the original founding member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and this is who Michael Rooker will be playing in the film. So this casting alone, and the fact that Zoe Saldana is practically now confirmed for Gamora. I haven't gotten any information from Disney/Marvel Studios, obviously, yet, but it looks like there's a 99% chance that Zoe Saldana will be playing Gamora. So you add Zoe Saldana, Chris Pratt as the leader, Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, Dave Bautista as Drax the Destroyer, and now Michael Rooker as Yondu. And that leaves only 2 more castings for the main cast yet left, being Groot, who is the tree, and Rocket Raccoon, who is still rumored to be the voice of Jason Statham. So that's where the casting stands for Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, speaking of Rocket Raccoon, James Gunn, who is in the middle of casting the movie, he's basically in an interview for Rocket Raccoon. He was asked about the challenge of finding the right person for Rocket Raccoon. This is what he had to say. There are a lot of people who have a lot of ideas who is right for Rocket Raccoon. Rocket Raccoon has been slightly different over the years. In the comic books and within my scripts, he is a very, very specific guy. And I think people are going to have to wait a few weeks before they see. We'll get our dream guy, because a lot of people want to do it, so we'll get the person who's perfect for the role. He continues to go on to say, I've done a lot of studying with real raccoons, and we had a real raccoon come in. We've had we've had real raccoons come in. We've done photography with them. I've played with raccoons and fed raccoons, and I dealt a lot with real raccoons to get some of the behavior down, because it's really, really important to me that Rocket Raccoon, who is the heart of the movie, is not a cartoon character. It's not Bugs Bunny in the middle of the Avengers. It's a real, little, somewhat mangled beast that's alone. There's no one else in the universe quite like him. He's been created by these guys to be a mean-ass fighting machine. Also, Gunn goes on to say, Guardians will feel a lot more like a science fiction movie than a comic book, and one of the quotes he had was, "In some ways, yes, but in some ways, no. In terms of a lot of stuff, we're very much like the Avengers, where it's a very big, huge movie. It's different because it's cosmic. It's in outer space. It's very colorful. We have a whole history of science fiction behind us that we're dealing with and borrowing from, and also fighting with to create something unique. But at the same time, there's a lot of stuff it has in common with the Avengers." So yes, it's going to have science fiction. It has to. It's going to be very space oriented. However, it is still at base level a comic book movie, and I cannot wait till August 2014, or even before then, when we start seeing little snippets and trailers, because the more I hear about this, the more I want to see it. So, director James Gunn has definitely worked hard at this. I'm still upset with the casting of Dave Bautista. However, the rest of the casting sounds pretty okay, and we're still waiting on a couple more. But the Michael Rooker edition, for me, makes this movie automatically something you have to go watch. So, sticking with a little bit of Marvel news, but not quite. Tom Hiddleston, who, as we all know, played Loki in the not only in the Thor movie, but in the Avengers movie, and he will return in Thor: The Dark World, which is the second Thor movie. He has in talks right now to play the Crow. That's right, the Crow is being remade. The new version will be directed by Spanish filmmaker Javier Gutierrez, Javier Gutierrez, and the script is going to be done by Cliff Dorfman, who wrote The Warrior, just Warrior, and being produced by Pressman Films and Misher Films, and so there's not much information on the Crow remake yet, but for those of you who don't know, this is a 1994 cult film. It did really well again on the DVD side of things, starring the late Brandon Lee. Basically, the concept is a man returns from death to get revenge on those who killed him. I don't want to spoil anything, but for those of you who haven't seen it, there is a crow involved, which is why it's called The Crow. And Tom Hiddleston would be a great choice. The other actor that was in talks for the role, but maybe not so much now, was James McAvoy, who also has ties to the Marvel Universe. As we know, he's playing Professor X in the upcoming next year X-Men Days of Future Past. So that's what is going on with Tom Hiddleston right now, besides filming the Thor sequel. Release date announced, and this release date is announced for Fast and Furious 7. Yes, Fast and Furious 6 isn't even out yet, and we have a release date for Fast and Furious 7. Vin Diesel announced at CinemaCon, which was last week, or going on this week, like this past week, that July 11th, 2014 would see the release of Fast and Furious 7. No other movie is scheduled for that date. However, the week before is Maleficent, which is the kind of Snow White-esque movie no, that's the Angelina Jolie movie. What is that about again? Sleeping Beauty, that's what it's supposed to be. It's like a darker Sleeping Beauty story, and it stars Angelina Jolie, Elle Fanning, I can't remember some of the actors. Anyways, it's going to open the week after that, but right after Fast and the Furious opens on the July 18th is X-Men Days of Future Past. So it's going to be smack dab in the middle of what's expected to be two bigger movies. So we'll have to see. Like I said, for this year, it's going to be almost every week a new movie is going to probably take precedent as to what could happen with the changing of the guard, so to speak, at the top of the universe that is the box office news. Excuse me, I'm stuttering there, just because I'm reading something and trying to talk at the same time, and it's not working very well. So that's why. All right. So moving on, Star Wars news. As you probably, for those of you who listen to Real Tuesdays and OJ's show, whether you listen to it on Tuesdays or live on Saturdays when it plays on the air, he has a whole Star Wars segment. I'm not going to start a segment, but there is some Star Wars news this week that I found important. And at CinemaCon on April 19th, which was again this past Friday, there was an announcement made that when Episode 7 hits theaters in 2015, there will be a Star Wars movie hitting theaters every summer after that, where there will be a Star Wars film and then alternating with one of the standalone films. So basically, 2015 will be Episode 7, 2016 will be one of the standalones, 2017 would be Episode 8, and then 2018 would be a standalone, and then 2019 would be Episode 9, and then 2020 would be a standalone. So they've mapped out from 2015 6 years of releases. Now, we don't know which the standalones are. We do know that the rumor at this time is that there's going to be a Han Solo movie, a Boba Fett movie, and possibly a Yoda movie. So it just remains to be seen what's exactly going to happen. It also remains to be seen whether that's going to be exactly the way they go, but they are going to alternate part of the trilogy and then one of the standalones, and so on and so forth. They basically need to start filming in the fall to do this, because then you would assume that a Han Solo film or Boba Fett film, whatever they're going to do, is going to fill in the next couple of years, and then Episode 8 arrives in 2017 or 2018, depending on how things go to the schedule that they've already mapped out. But again, there basically will be a Star Wars movie every summer from 2015 for the next 6 to whatever years, 6 to 9 years. I don't know how long they're going to go. But there's going to be a Star Wars film, apparently, for quite some while. Now, there's been grumblings as to what this would entail, because there's not a lot of people out there that enjoy the fact that Star Wars could be watered down, so to speak. So I'll leave it up to you to decide, but I mean, with 2015 being the first one, still being 2 years away, we'll just have to wait and see. But that's the plan coming out of Lucasfilms / Disney right now. Now, moving on, Michael Bay, as we all know, is he is directing the movie that I really want to see this weekend, being Pain and Gain. However, he takes a lot of flack for a lot of his movies, and apparently he also can give flack. Michael Bay is not pleased with what he terms rip-off film of Guillermo del Toro's Pacific Rim. He's saying that it's a rip-off of the Transformers franchise. He spoke out vehemently against Guillermo del Toro. He had very pointed remarks that I cannot repeat, mostly because they're not repeatable. He basically has said that he thinks that it's a complete rip-off. He thinks Guillermo del Toro is just trying to make a movie exactly like his, and that's what he thinks. Now, Guillermo del Toro responded to that, and he goes, "We are far, far, far away from that in a very willing fashion. This is my universe and my creation, and I do not create through comparison." He goes on to say, "Don't saying the films can't talk." Del Toro further says that his film's battles don't occur in well-lit, super cruel, car commercial-looking environments, that they occur in the middle of a raging sea storm or in a savage snowstorm. They happen in a universe that is incredibly saturated. He is saying that his version is so different than a Transformers movie that you're not going to be comparing the two. So, for those of you who are excited to see Pacific Rim, you can make your own decisions. Personally, I think they are very different, but I can also see their similarities. Now, would I go out and say that Michael Bay is right in calling out the movie and the director? No. However, he is entitled to his opinion. I'm giving you mine. That's why I'm doing this. But the thing is, there are similarities whether Guillermo del Toro admits it or not. However, the similarities may end in the fact that there are giant robots. They don't transform into anything as far as I know, so there's a lot of differences too. I want to see Pacific Rim, and I think it's going to be a decent movie. Speaking of Michael Bay and his abomination known as the Ninja Turtles movie, they have now officially changed the name. The title is now going to be called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They are back to calling the movie what the fans want it to be called. However, we still don't know if they're going to actually be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And when I say that, this emphasis on that word is mutant. Everybody who's been a Turtles fan knows that the Turtles were created through a mutagenic ooze that basically transformed them from turtles into turtle humanoids, because the last person they were in contact with was a human. And it transformed Splinter from a human to a humanoid rat, because the last thing he was in contact with was a humanoid rat. Now, there's variations on that all over the place, of course, but what we don't want, what we need it to not be, is aliens. Michael Bay, please stop bringing aliens into it. If you make this movie Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and even though you've got Megan Fox in it, which nobody can comprehend why, maybe it can succeed. You make these things aliens, and the backlash, in this social media world, the backlash will be deafening. It already has been. As I mentioned last week, they have cast their Splinter in Danny Woodburn. I like that casting. I don't like the Megan Fox casting. I don't really know the people that are voicing the Turtles themselves. So, and besides, they're mostly just voice and motion capture, so you don't really see them anyway, so it's not a big deal to me. But they cannot be aliens. That's the bottom line. They cannot be aliens. So the official title now is, once again, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Okay. Moving on a bit. Announcement of a movie that's yet to be done. They're still working on finding a writer. It's called Spy's Kid. Not Spy Kids. It's no relation to the Robert Rodriguez films. It's called Spy's Kid. And what this movie is basically about is based on articles that were published by Brian Denson in the Oregonian, probably a newspaper in Oregon, in 2011, and it told the true story of a traitorous spy who enlists his son to continue his work. The movie is the production company, who is Paramount. Sorry, it just took me a while to find it. And being directed by DJ Caruso, is in talks with Robert De Niro and Shia LaBeouf to play the father and son duo in this film. And that's really all that I know about it. But, as I said, there's no writer on board yet. However, Robert De Niro and Shia LaBeouf. Robert De Niro, a huge actor. Shia LaBeouf, hit or miss, really. kind of actor. However, LaBeouf has worked on 2 movies with this director in the past, Disturbia and Eagle Eye, and those 2 were very good movies. So maybe this director can bring out the best in the beef. And moving on from that, more news about movies that are being announced. Dodgeball, a true underdog story, is getting a sequel. They are in pre-production right now. Clay Tarver is going to be writing the script, and both Vince Vaughn and Ben Stiller will return. The premise as it is right now is going to see some kind of team-up between White Goodman, which was played by Ben Stiller, and Peter LaFleur, played by Vince Vaughn, to join forces. So, for those of you who enjoyed the very entertaining movie Dodgeball, A True Underdog Story, there is a sequel in the works at 20th Century Fox. And finally, in movie news this week, they released an image, which I will post in the description below so that you can check it out for yourself, of the horrible actress Halle Berry as Storm in X-Men Days of Future Past. And let me just say this, I think it's a horrible outfit for a horrible actress. It looks terrible. I'm still going to see the movie. I was very disappointed when they announced she was coming back. If they were going to recast anybody, I wish it was Storm, because I don't like Halle Berry, and I like her even less as the character Storm. She has ruined that character. That character is supposed to be very cool, and she cannot play that. So you can check out the picture below for yourself, but for me, it's crap. So on to some television news. It is being reported that NBC may bring back the Heroes show, but exclusively for the Xbox. Now, I'm not sure how I feel like this because I hate the Xbox. However, Tim Kring, who created Heroes, is trying to work a new story mixing cameos from the original cast, so there would be basically a new cast, but there would be some people jumping in, and this would be a much like they're doing shows on Netflix. Like right now, they got Hemlock Grove, where it's a series that is being done on Netflix. Also, they've restarted doing Arrested Development on Netflix. Well, this would be basically that, and you could basically download it on the Xbox Live, is what I'm assuming, and then you would be able to watch it through there. Now, like I said, the reason I don't like it is because I enjoyed the show when it was on the air, although the last season wasn't that great. However, I would not be watching this because I don't own, nor do I ever plan to own, an Xbox. Moving on with television news. The Doctor Who 50th anniversary show gets worse and worse every time I see more news from it. Yes, I am very happy that David Tennant, because he is my Doctor, he is my favorite Doctor, he is the ultimate Doctor in my opinion. I could watch him play the Doctor for eons. Is coming back, as well as Billie Piper. Not my greatest companion, but definitely David and Billie kind of were synonymous with Doctor Who when he was on the show. However, it seems more and more that that's going to be it. There's been no real good casting, no real good news for anything else as far as the 50th anniversary special is concerned, and it makes me very upset. So far, we know Christopher Eccleston is not going to be involved. Now, Colin Baker, the 6th Doctor, Sylvester McCoy, the 7th Doctor, and Paul McGann, the 8th Doctor, were all in Australia filming a morning show when production is going on for the Doctor Who 50th anniversary. One of McCoy's comments, Sylvester McCoy's comments, was that all the fan bases all over the world believe that the former Doctor should be involved, but apparently the producers of the BBC don't. I know there was a quote here somewhere. I'm just trying to find it. Okay, I can't find it, but basically what was said was, well, obviously since the production is going on now and we're here, we're not involved. So they couldn't say for sure that they're out, but they're out. I mean, when they're halfway across the world, when the show's being filmed, it's not great. Also, McGann is quoted as saying that it's worth noting that he references Ninth Doctor Christopher Eccleston's possible involvement, but the latest we've heard about him is that he opted out of the special. Clearly, McGann doesn't read the articles or anything else that we found, but he said, I think Chris Eccleston is probably a big factor in it. I don't want to speak for him. He's probably reluctant to get involved in anything that's ongoing. So that's something that they have to somehow get over and deal with. I'm guessing they've got time to do it. It's not quite the anniversary yet. The anniversary doesn't start until November. Whatever it is that they're planning and they are making, they've got time to do it. It's my feeling, and this is just a personal thing, once they resolve Chris Eccleston's participation or non-participation, either way, then they're free to figure it out. Being actors anyway, they'll call us on the Friday and say, you're starting on a Monday. So he's not ruling out that there's a chance that other doctors, former doctors, could be involved, but it's not looking good. And as we know, Chris Eccleston is not going to be part of it. Maybe he did not know at the time of that interview. However, I'm excited to see David Tennant back. Do not get that wrong. But I'm very, very disappointed at everything that I'm finding out about this 50th anniversary, or lack thereof of any celebration, because they're not doing anything special that the fans really want to see. And this goes back to the BBC and Steve Moffat. And it's like they don't care what the fans think. They're going to do what they have planned, and the fans be damned. And that's a bullshit way to do it. Okay, moving on in TV news. The director of Oblivion, Joe Kosinski, and the Pacific Rim writer, Travis Beachman, are developing a television show for AMC. It will be a sci-fi series, and it will be called Ballistic City. The series will take place in a large quote-unquote city within a traveling spaceship on its way to an unknown destination. The show will follow a former cop who falls into the underground world of organized crime. The show is described as being a cross between Battlestar Galactica, Blade Runner, and Roman Polanski's Chinatown. I think networks might have to look out, because AMC has hit shows like Mad Men, which I don't watch, but it is a hit show. Breaking Bad, which, again, I don't watch, but is a hit show. And, of course, a show I do watch, The Walking Dead. Now, if they start adding in sci-fi into these genres that they've got, I mean, network shows better start looking out, because AMC is making its pull to bring in some of the best shows on television in this decade, even. And, Ballistic City, well, it's still in the works. Sounds like an interesting concept. It sounds very Star Trek-esque, Battlestar Galactica-esque, and that is always nice for a sci-fi nerd like myself. And finally, in television news, Clark Gregg, as we know, Agent Coulson of Avengers fame, he has an update, sort of, on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which, as we know, is the ABC show that's going to be focusing on the S.H.I.E.L.D. unit. His quote, when he was spoken to at the Tribeca Film Festival, I don't know how you could not change going through what he went through. And this is in reference to Coulson's state of mind during the show. He goes on, I think if he hadn't gone through some kind of change, it wouldn't be any good. That said, I don't know if he understands how much he's changed. This is referring to, of course, the end of Avengers, and fans, viewers, are sort of accepting that he's dead. When Joss Whedon described the mystery and the complexity and the unanswered questions about Phil Coulson standing there trying to deal with this, I found it so fascinating and so true to the world of comics and mythology in general, as I understand them, that I was immediately in. And so we are not going to know exactly how the exact method of Coulson's return. That's going to be part of the show. Greg goes on to say, some level of deception must have been perpetrated on the Avengers. It must have been, I think. So he's kind of teasing us there, but for some of us smarter fans, we don't see a body, we don't believe he's dead, especially in a comic book movie. Personally, I think Phil Coulson was able to be revived by the paramedics, but because Nick Fury needed the Avengers to band together, he used his quote-unquote death to band them together. Now, as I said, part of the mystery of how he's back will be part of the show's storyline, so we're not going to find out everything all at once. This is going to drag out throughout the season, whether they use half a season to play out this storyline or even the whole season, or maybe into a season 2, depending on how this show does. Personally, I think this show has great potential. I am looking forward to this fall's TV lineup just for this show alone. That and The Big Bang Theory, because I love that show. But this show is going to be definitely added to my list of shows come the fall. So that's your TV news this week, and then we're going to take a little break and get a little word from Rob Cicchetto.
Hi, I'm Rob Cicchetto, and you're listening to Ehnotherpodcast.com.
Okay, and we're back, and I have some gaming news this week. As I said, gaming news would appear as I find it, and I found some. So this week in gaming news, Bethesda Softworks announces The Evil Within. They plan to release this survival horror game. It's being developed at Tango Gameworks on the direction of renowned game designer Shinji Mikami. Probably pronouncing that wrong, but basically he's the guy that gave us the Resident Evil series. So he has definite, full credentials in making a survival horror game. And this game is being developed to be released in 2014. It will be released on all consoles, so the Xbox 360, the PlayStation 3, the PC, and next-gen consoles. The quote from Mikami is, "My team and I are committed to creating an exciting new franchise, providing fans the perfect blend of horror and action." So the game is called The Evil Within, and it's a horror survival game. So much like the Resident Evil series, probably with some subtle differences. THQ, as mentioned weeks ago, they claimed bankruptcy. While they've now officially sold the remaining of their assets and their intellectual properties. Nordic Games Licensing, which is a Swedish-based video game publisher, spent the most. They spent $4.9 million to acquire Darksiders, Red Faction, MX vs. ATV, and other software containing Destroy All Humans, Summoner, Marvel Superhero Squad, and Supreme Commander, and a few more titles, but those are just the ones that are listed. Gearbox Software acquired Homeworld, and 505 Games acquired Drawn to Life and Drawn to Life: The Next Chapter. So all of THQ's intellectual properties are now sold. These last sales are pending bankruptcy court approval, but it's expected that on May 13th, when it does go to the bankruptcy court, they will approve the transactions, and all of the THQ intellectual properties will be gone, and THQ will no longer exist as a company. A little bit of fun, kind of a snippet of fact. I don't know what you want to call it, but this past week, in fact, this past weekend, a gamer found a Goodwill game, found at a Goodwill $8 game called Family Fun Fitness Stadium Events. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is a super rare collectible original Nintendo Entertainment System game. Okay, she found it at a Goodwill thrift store in North Carolina. Bought it for $8. She put the game up on Game Gavel, a video game auction site, and currently, with 6 days left, currently is Monday, so 4 days left on the Wednesday when you're listening to this. Well, I'm going to have to say it like this because the article's like this. On Monday, as of Monday, with 6 days remaining on the bidding, and there'll be 4 days left by the time you're listening to it, but on the Monday, $12,000 is the current bid. She spent $8 for this game. It is recognized as the quote-unquote holy grail of the Nintendo Entertainment System. It is now up to a bid of $12,000. A copy of this game surfaced in 2011 and sold for $38,000. So for those of you who might want to peruse some of your local Goodwills for gamies, this is definitely one you want to get. So that name of the game again is from Bandai. It's called Family Fun Fitness Stadium Events. It's an original Nintendo Entertainment System game. The old style cartridge, where you had to blow inside to make the cartridge work when you popped it into your Nintendo. This game is apparently a very rare game and can be sold for quite a bit. Now, this isn't the first time this has happened. An independent game that was developed for the Atari 2600 in 1983 called Red Sea Crossing sold at an auction in 2007 for $10,000. Also, a copy of Air Raid, also for the Atari 2600, sold for $33,000. There are people out there that are willing to pay for these kind of games, these rare collectible games. And this woman here spent $8 and has already accumulated a $11,992 profit, because the bid is at $12,000, and who knows what it'll be by the time it ends on next Sunday. So that is absolutely insane. Totally. All right, that's the gaming news for this week. Now another word from Rob Cicchetto.
Hi, I'm Rob Cicchetto, creator of Zombie Portraits. You can check out Zombie Portraits at zombieportraits.com.
Thank you, Rob. And as he said, check out zombieportraits.com, and you can look up his work there. So, final segment this week is sports, as it always is. I save it for the end because I know most of my listeners are more interested in the comic book and entertainment and movie news that I do, but I do have a fan base in sports, and I enjoy sports. I'm a nerd. I'm also a sports lover. I'm a weird guy. I like a lot of different things, and I don't care what anybody thinks. So, on to the sports news. We're going to start, of course, with the NHL standings. And as we get closer to the playoffs, in fact, we are in the final week of the season. By the time you're listening to this, there will be 4 days left in the regular season, ending on the 28th. It was supposed to end on the 27th, but due to the tragedies of that happened at the Boston Marathon last weekend, some games that were postponed are being made up, and one of those games will be the Boston-Ottawa game that was canceled, and that will be made up on Sunday the 28th. Just before I do get into the NHL news, just one last thing I want to say about the Boston Marathon. It is tragic, and it sucks that stuff like this keeps happening in our society. There are a lot of people out there with a lot of issues, and no matter what we as a people do, it seems that nothing changes. And no matter how much we try and move on, these events seem to keep occurring. And it is very tragic, and I am very pleased to say this week that one of the perpetrators was gunned down in a shootout, and the other one is in custody after a day-long manhunt. So at least the people who perpetrated the Boston Marathon bombings are now either deceased or in custody. So that is good news to report. So, back to the NHL standings. As I said, we're getting closer to the end of this season. There are more teams with playoff spots confirmed. And we're going to start with the Eastern Conference standings as they are right now here on Monday night. I know you're listening on Wednesday and things will have changed between now and then. We may know more. But as I always say, I'm recording this on Monday, so let's go to the standings as they are now. The Pittsburgh Penguins are in top spot in the Eastern Conference with 70 points. They defeated Ottawa tonight 3-1 to get to 70 points with 3 games remaining. Sitting in second place right now are the Boston Bruins, and they have the same amount of points as Montreal, but the reason why they get the second and the division lead is because they have 4 games left to play, where Montreal only has 3. In the third spot, and the division leader there, the Washington Capitals, who could still be overtaken by the Winnipeg Jets, are sitting into that third spot right now. It is a tight battle. The only team out of the Eastern Conference playoffs right now that could still make it in are the Winnipeg Jets. Unfortunately, they only have 2 games left and are 1 point behind. They play tomorrow night against Washington in what will be a huge game. They did win tonight on Monday. Tuesday will be the day after it'll be yesterday by the time you're listening to this, so we may know more. Basically, if Washington wins that game, Winnipeg cannot win the division, but could still make the playoffs depending on what happens with the Ottawa Senators and the New York Rangers. So continuing on, Montreal sits in 4th place with 59 points. Toronto clinches a playoff spot for the first time in 9 years and is in 5th spot currently with 55 points. The New York Islanders have 53 points. Not a playoff clinching spot yet, but as I said, only one team sits out of the playoffs right now that can make it, and that would be Winnipeg. So New York Islanders are 6th, the New York Rangers are 7th, and the Ottawa Senators are 8th. Winnipeg is 1 point behind both the Rangers and the Senators, and also the division-leading Washington Capitals for the final playoff spot. Now, one of these teams, the Islanders, the Rangers, the Senators, the Capitals, or the Jets, will not make the playoffs. That is how it stands right now as I record here on Monday. By Wednesday, we may have an elimination. When there are games that are being played on Tuesday that are very important, where Winnipeg plays Washington, which is huge. I cannot mention how huge. I cannot. It doesn't even. It's so huge. Especially for Winnipeg Jet fans who would love to see their team back into the playoffs. But it is just a huge day for the Winnipeg Washington game. That has got to be the featured game on any sports channel out there, because it is going to be absolutely important for Winnipeg to win this game if they even want to hope to get in, because as I said, they only have 2 games left. This is one of them. Their other one will be against Montreal on Thursday. Now, the other teams this week, they play, the Islanders play the Carolina Hurricanes on Tuesday. The Rangers play the Florida Panthers on Tuesday. Ottawa plays the Washington Capitals on Thursday. So a lot of these teams are interconnected as to who they play and kind of hold the destiny in their own hands, but they are going to need a little bit of help, especially the Jets. So it's a little bit more clear in the East than it is in the West. And as we move to the West, we have a surprise as it stands now. And it could change between now and Wednesday and between now and Sunday when the regular season ends. Currently leading the Western Conference and still the NHL, although they still need a win in their last 4 games to clinch the President's Trophy. That would be the Chicago Blackhawks. They have 73 points leading the West. In second place is the Anaheim Ducks with 62. In third place, the Vancouver Canucks with 57. Fourth is the Los Angeles Kings, also with 57. And then it becomes a little bit murkier as we move down. San Jose's 55 is almost good enough for a clinching spot. Probably need one more point. St. Louis needs 2 more points. They have 54. They're probably safe. Here's where it gets dicey. Again, there are still ways that the 10th place team could get in. So it's not as clear as the East, but we are basically down to about 4 teams fighting for the last 2 spots. That being the Minnesota Wild with 51 points, the Columbus Blue Jackets with 51 points, the Detroit Red Wings with 50 points, and the Dallas Stars with 48 points. Now, the Dallas Stars are a huge outside chance. They need to win all 3 of their remaining games, and in that, they need some of those other teams, Detroit, Columbus, and Minnesota, to lose some of their remaining games. Now, here's the surprising thing, and it still could change because they have 3 games left. The Detroit Red Wings have made the playoffs 21 consecutive years. Right now, as it stands, they are in danger of missing the playoffs for the first time in 21 years. This is a record that's been going on for a very long time, and they need to step it up in the final week of the season to not become just another team that doesn't make the playoffs. They are chasing the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Minnesota Wild. They can overtake both of them. They can finish as high as, well, if teams lose, they could still finish as high as 5th, but I don't think San Jose and St. Louis are going to lose the remaining 3 games that they have left. However, they could creep as high as 7th in all honesty, but they could also fall as low as 10th. And that would be strange for a Detroit Red Wings team that has almost consistently been in the playoffs that has been consistently in the playoffs for over 20 years. So the Western Conference is not as clear as the East, but there's still that final playoff battle for the Winnipeg Jets. New Jersey was officially eliminated, and they are the 10th seed in the East. So there's just one team fighting for, there's 4 teams fighting for those final 3 spots, but the Winnipeg Jets are the ones doing more fighting than any other team. They only have 2 games remaining where the rest have 3. So we'll just have to wait and see how the remainder of this week goes. Moving on to statistics, the Crybaby, even though he is injured still, is still leading in points, but now he's very closely followed by Martin St. Louis and Steven Stamkos of the Tampa Bay Lightning. He has 56, St. Louis has 55, and Stamkos has 54. Also close there are Ovechkin and Patrick Kane, each with 51, so hopefully one of those 4 guys can overtake him before the end of the year. Your assists leader is now Martin St. Louis with 42. Your goals leader is Alexander Ovechkin with 30. Your plus-minus leader is Pascal Dupuis with 30. Your goals against average leader is Craig Anderson with a 1.64 goals against. He's also your save percentage leader at a .944 save percentage. And your wins leader is a tie between Antti Niemi and Evgeny Nabokov, both with 23 wins. And your shutout leaders, 3-way tie with Corey Schneider of the Vancouver Canucks, Pekka Rinne of the Nashville Predators, and Mike Smith of the Phoenix Coyotes. So those are your statistic leading category men. And moving on to the 3 stars of the week from the NHL this last week. And your first star was Andrew Ladd of the Winnipeg Jets. He led the NHL with 8 points, 2 goals, 6 assists in 3 games to help the Jets pick up 5 out of a possible 6 points. They did lose one in an overtime, I think a shootout. Andrew Ladd was definitely a big part of that. Your second star, Brad Richards of the New York Rangers. He had 4 goals and 3 assists in 4 games this past week. Logan Couture is your third star, and this is the first time, I've been saying it ever since I started this podcast, this is the first time, all 20 episodes now, we are on episode 20 of the Warlock Hour, Warlock Wednesdays here, and this is the first time I'm doing the 3 stars where there is not a goalie in the 3 stars. I thought there always had to be, but apparently they don't. They just usually had a goalie. This time there's not. Logan Couture of the San Jose Sharks collected 6 points, 3 goals, 3 assists, and 2 of those goals were game-winning goals in 4 games this week to help the Sharks basically almost clinch a playoff spot. As I said, the Sharks are sitting in 5th place with 55 points. I figure a point or 2 this week will be what they need for clinching a spot. So, and this would be their 9th year clinching a playoff spot. Now, it's not as long as the Detroit Red Wings, but a 9th consecutive playoff berth in this day and age is pretty damn good. So, that's your NHL news. Let's move on to the baseball news, and I've got it a little bit better, I hope. I'm still trying to work out how I want to do this. I think I've got it the way I like it this week, and we'll just see how it goes. And your standings. In the American League, your division leaders are the Boston Red Sox in the East with a 13-6 record, your Texas Rangers in the West with a 12-6 record, and the Kansas City Royals in the Central with a 10-7 record. Your wild card leaders are Oakland Athletics from the West with a 12-8 record, and the Baltimore Orioles from the AL East with an 11-8 record. Now, it's still early in the season, and there are definitely spots up for contention, but those are your leaders in the AL this week. In the National League, we have a tie in the Central Division, but your leaders are Atlanta in the NL East with a 13-5 record. Also with a 13-5 record out of the West are the Colorado Rockies, and as I said, there is a tie in the Central with Cincinnati and St. Louis, both with an 11-8 record. Now, for the wild card, that also means that other than San Francisco from the West, who have a 12-7 record, you have a tie for that second spot with an 11-8 record, the Cincinnati and St. Louis. So basically, whoever doesn't win the division right now would win the wild card. Again, very early on, we're only 20 games into this 117, less than 20 games into a 162-game season, so it's still a long way to go. So your statistical leaders, I picked 3 categories for your hitting and 3 categories for your pitching. So 6 categories that I'm going to talk about. Basically going to give you a top 5. There's a few more in some of the categories just because of certain things, and you'll see as I go along there's a bit less than the others. Here we go. Your home run leaders. From the Atlanta Braves, Justin Upton with 9. And then there is a 6-way tie for second, and they are J.P. Arencibia of the Toronto Blue Jays, John Buck of the New York Mets, Chris Davis of the Baltimore Orioles, Dexter Fowler of the Colorado Rockies, Bryce Harper of the Washington Nationals, and Mark Reynolds of the Cleveland Indians, all with 7 home runs. Your RBI leaders, John Buck with 22 from the New York Mets, Chris Davis from the Baltimore Orioles with 22, Prince Fielder and Brandon Phillips, Prince Fielder of the Tigers and Brandon Phillips of the Reds, each with 21 RBIs, and Mike Napoli of the Red Sox with 20. Your stolen base leaders, Jacoby Ellsbury of the Boston Red Sox, 8 steals so far. Coco Crisp of the Oakland Athletics and Andrew McCutchen each have 6 steals. And I'm not going any further because there was 8 others tied with 5 steals. Pitchers. I've got your top 3. Clay Buchholz of the Boston Red Sox, Matt Harvey of the New York Mets, and Matt Moore of the Tampa Bay Rays, all with 4 wins. Then it was a logjam. 16 other pitchers have 3 wins currently this early into the season. Your strikeout leaders, Yu Darvish of the Texas Rangers has 38. A.J. Burnett of the Pittsburgh Pirates has 35. Ryan Dempster and Jake Peavy, one of the Red Sox, that's Dempster, Peavy of the White Sox, each with 33 strikeouts. And Matt Harvey of the Mets and CC Sabathia of the Yankees have 32. And your saves leaders are Sergio Romo from I almost said the New York Giants, but that would be football. No, the San Francisco Giants, and he has 8. Then we have 4 others tied at 7 saves. Rafael Betancourt of the Colorado Rockies, Jason Gurley of the Pittsburgh Pirates, Jim Johnson of the Baltimore Orioles, and Craig Kimbrell of the Atlanta Braves all have 7 saves. So that's your statistics in the baseball league this week, and I hope you enjoyed the way I've done it and figured out kind of how I want to do the baseball, because it is hard. There's so much going on, and those are the statistical categories that I think most people are interested in. And if you want to hear more, let me know in the comments, because then I can maybe add it in or figure out a different way of doing it. So just let me know what you want to hear, because I'm here for you just as much as I'm here to talk, because I like to talk and I like sports, and and I like all the stuff that I talk about. If you have any comments about anything, feel free to leave them at any time. I read all the comments, and I make sure that if you've commented, that I try to reply back. So if there's anything you want to know about, just make sure you post it. As I said, that was how I was going to do the baseball. So hope you enjoyed the show. This is the end of the Warlock Hour and this episode of Warlock Wednesdays with Rayzor. Remember, tune in for all the shows on the network, and I'm not sure what's going on with Teen Talk Thursdays. I'll have to get back on that, because it looks like the show is on hiatus, perhaps. It hasn't been up the last couple of weeks, so I'm not going to say tune in tomorrow to Teen Talk Thursdays, just in case it's not there. However, there are 3 shows still firmly being played on the network, and that would be Ehnother Monday, Real Tuesday, and Warlock Wednesday. So be sure to check us out on Ehnotherpodcast.com every week. Don't forget, you can also find in the links below that a couple of days after it's posted on Ehnother Podcast on Wednesdays, usually Thursday, Friday, I post it up on YouTube as well. So you can check it out here, and then you can check it out on YouTube. You can find us on iTunes. You can find it everywhere. Just be sure to come back and listen every week, because as long as you're listening, I'm recording. Have a good day, everyone. Good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. I hope it's great, and I hope it's grand, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening to Ehnother Podcast from Ehnotherpodcast.com. Don't forget to go on iTunes and or download right from Ehnotherpodcast.com. That's Ehnother Podcast.com. Follow us on Twitter at Ehnother Podcast. Be sure to check back for tomorrow's show only on Ehnother Podcast, your Canadian podcast network. Ehnotherpodcast.com. Not a sponsor.